Hey, it's me, Austin Space, and I just got done playing God of War. Not the 2018 version one, because you know me, I don't play games that come out as they come out, but I did play the original God of War, and I played it on this God of War Saga collection on the PlayStation 3. So I've never been super interested in God of War. Like, I know I'm a big Sony fan and stuff like that. I actually did pick up a lot of the games for God of War. Like, well, this one basically covers all of them, and I did buy Ascension digitally. But that was not something that I was like super into growing up a big PlayStation fan. Like, I knew about it on the PS2. I didn't really play it. That was like a college thing, I want to say, for me. And then when the PS3 came out, yeah, that's where it was more of a college thing. When the PS3 came out, it was more of a college thing for me because my buddy got that red PS3, played the God of War 3 on it, and beat it on there, and I kind of watched him do it. So that's really all the experience I had with God of War. And then the new one comes out, and people are very impressed with it. Could win Game of the Year this year. It's going to be nominated. So that's really interesting. And a lot of people were very pleased to see this evolution going into it. So the 2018 version comes out, this and that. People are excited, and it really intrigued me, and I'm like, man, I really got to get on that series. So I at least made somewhat of a start, you know. I have to play games in order. So let's first talk quickly about this collection here. Okay, so I open it up, and I thought all games were on it, but apparently it comes with a code for the PSP games, and that code expired in 2016, so I have to go buy those secondary games, even though I bought it on this, which completely sucks. As you know, you can see all of my reviews on yeahiplaygames.com. That will have a written review up there for God of War if you want to check that out. But I have lots of thoughts on God of War in the series, and my review sort of tackles it from a 2018 lens, which could be fair, could not be fair, whatever. It's hard to do a retro review without talking about where we are today, and if things hold up and things don't hold up. But I'll get to that in a second. So the things I want to get out of the way first are the gameplay. So I wrote some notes down here, and the gameplay, it's what you expect, or what I expected from a God of War game. You go around through different levels, big beat-em-up, hack-and-slash style game. You can upgrade your weapons, upgrade your magic, go through levels, defeat a bunch of grotesque enemies, blood and guts and gore everywhere, whatever. And there's like quick time events to finish off foes and stuff like that. I thought it was perfectly serviceable and perfectly good. I'm not a big beat 'em up person, or I'm not really have a big history with that genre, or in the hack and slash thing. But you know, it's like, okay, don't at me, but I put it on easy and went through it because I wanted to experience the story and learn. That, I think, is where God of War shines its best from a gameplay perspective. You can upgrade your weapons. You can use different weapons, whichever one you want. You can use magic. You can do different. You can tailor it to your experience, which I found so funny because I did barely use my Blades of Chaos once I found the Blade of Artemis in my playthrough, and then I realized, I can unlock a lot more with the Blades of Chaos. Because at the end, I really didn't have much to upgrade. There were some magic abilities I didn't like the Medusa one, but I liked all the other ones you get. You get the Hades one, Zeus one, you have to use basically, and the Poseidon one. So I had a different experience than other people would, but I found it pretty cool that you can use it any way you like, you know, and how I tackle the game is not how somebody else would tackle the game, which I think is pretty neat. So I'm holding off on the story stuff because I will get into that later. Now, looking at the stuff that doesn't happen as often in God of War is the stuff that doesn't shine as well. You do have some platforming sections, and you do also have some climbing sections. Those are pretty boring. and they're kind of slow and tedious, and you just have to get through them. The platforming isn't particularly great because some of the camera angles are sacrificed due to some cinematic liberties that they wanted to take in the game. Luckily, that's not like on the forefront of the game, but it is something that shouldn't be ignored. And that is the stuff that caused me more deaths. Well, not exactly. That caused me more deaths than the actual hack and slash combat elements of the game. Now, the biggest downfall of the game, well, not necessarily. Another aspect of the game is the puzzles. They're completely fine. It often involves moving blocks around or moving like a big weapon around to blast open an area. But they're not... They're fine. It's just Kratos moves very slow when you're trying to solve a puzzle. So you know the puzzle, you know how to do it, but you have to like spin this block around, and it takes forever to do it. That is where, and that's fine and all. It's just really slow, but that can hurt you when you have to move a big block across a long area, or you have a timed puzzle to solve. And because of how slow Kratos is, it becomes a real pain. Now, there are ways to move blocks quicker and faster, but it's just inintuitive. So whenever the game slows down from the hack and slash stuff to move blocks around and do this, it doesn't shine all that much. I like the puzzle elements, but I felt there could have been more intuitive ways to use them. Luckily, they're not big parts of the game. Most of the game is you going from point A to point B, beating up bad dudes as you go through and upgrading that, which is great. I'm glad the focus was there. So let's get into what I want to talk about big time is the 2018 lens of God of War. So the recent God of War comes out, right? The most new one. Accolades all over the place. Comes out February. It's Game of the Year. People are excited. People love this series. They really do. And people always love this series. They got like the original God of War series was, I was in my like quick research of it, got a lot of great reviews on it. So like very high 9s, mid 9s to 10s, not 10s, but very high, mid 9s, I want to say. And then lately it was Kratos is now considered, like shortly before this game came out, people were talking about how Kratos is now considered, well, in 2018, it's like they were happy to see this evolution, which is cool. I like to see characters evolve too. He's a very, he's this father figure now, and he's training a lot more personable. Now, and the thing is, they discredited where Kratos came from and where the series came from. So, Kratos is considered, by today's standards, misogynistic, like a huge, like, ass, like a terrible person, this and that, and not very dynamic, just an angry human being and whatever. I don't feel that is a fair assessment of Kratos. I was introduced to him with a full respect. I've only known him from ads or what I've seen from in other references or reviews or something like that. Okay, I see what you're getting at. But after playing the first God of War, I think that is an unfair assessment. And I want to talk about that. The story of God of War, I think is pretty good. The first one is pretty good. So obviously we know we're set in this Greek mythology aesthetic. And it tells this tale of Kratos being tasked by Athena to go kill the God of War, Ares. And you realize the motivations and why he's doing it as the story progresses. And it's told like through flashbacks, and as you get further and deeper into the game, you understand what's happening, why. You get lots of questions answered, and then more questions even after the game ends. You're like, whoa, what about this, and what about this? And then they're setting up for other games, which is pretty cool. And you follow Kratos throughout this whole saga. Now, to describe him as just an angry guy that markets himself to teenage, adolescent, boys who like blood and guts and like, topless women and stuff like that, I feel like that's a very trite criticism. Kratos blends in to the Greek mythology so well. If you know anything, and I'm not this expert on Greek mythology or anything, but from what I've learned from Greek mythology in high school, was that these deities in Greek mythology are, for the most part, very flawed gods. All of them, for the most part. They're all killing each other or cheating on each other or what have you, right? So for Kratos to be an angry, violent, flawed man seems to blend in with what the folks at Santa Monica were trying to achieve. Like, this is not a ripped from Greek mythology, but it just so well could have been a Greek myth. And that is what they achieved. They basically took a character, put him in there, and said, okay, let's see him evolve and muck around in this Greek mythology universe. And I think they did a great job with that. Kratos, from my perspective and from the marketing that I saw after beating the game, the rewards you get for that, I don't think it was meant to be this likable character that you're supposed to love and all this other stuff with. Maybe you don't connect with him or anything like that, and that's fine, but there are other elements to Kratos being an angry person. He's remorseful. There are moments in the game where he's very remorseful. While some of the things he's done are his own fault, and he knows that, he feels remorseful. I'm not going to get into it. I'm sure you know by now, but the motivations for his violent spree are valid somewhat. Like, you get why he's doing it. And sort of like the sexual connotations where there's a lot of like, okay, like that was a thing in Greece. It wasn't, or ancient Greek mythology where, there are bathhouses where people go just sleep with each other and stuff like that. That was not an unusual thing. So I'm not sitting here going, this is just in it for the sake of appealing to teenage boys. It really feels like it sets into the aesthetic. Now, the aesthetic is dark and a lot more mature and stuff like that, and other people can take a different tone on it, but the content is still there. There's lots of war, there's lots of violence, there's lots of sex, stuff like that, and they cranked it up a little bit for the cinematic experience that God of War offers, but to simply come back and say Kratos sucks as a character and all this yada yada yada, I just feel like it's a little unfair after recently playing it. So I just talked about that a lot in my interview, and I wanted to explain that. So I really do think it's cool that Kratos evolved and has become a more nuanced character in 2018. And I'm not saying he should always remain the same. I think it's really cool. But I will defend the fact that he is an interesting character from, what was it, when this game came out? 2005, when the original game came out. He is still an interesting character then. In the story about Kratos, and at least from the first one, from what I played, is interesting and does have merit. And I just don't want that taken away, considering we have a new mythology in a new direction for the series. So that is one thing I just wanted to come on camera, talk about that, and open that discussion up. Because I was going in there sort of believing or was well aware of the criticisms that the series has now, and going into it now, I'm like, that is a bit unfair. So looking at it now, I'm not giving it the high grades it gave back then. I gave it an 8 because it's perfectly serviceable and it's perfectly good and I enjoyed it. It's not the greatest thing in the world I ever played, but for what it is, what it accomplishes, what it set out to do, there's a few gameplay aspects I don't like, whether it's moving blocks around, some platforming, climbing around, a little boring. But as far as the story being told, I think it's pretty good. The way Kratos, as a character, I think it's pretty interesting. The way you interact with all the Greek gods and all the Greek references in the game, that backdrop and aesthetic is pretty cool. It's very cinematic, overly violent, but in a very Tarantino-esque way. I did enjoy God of War. I was a little bit surprised by it, to be quite honest. So I don't know when I'll play the second one. Spyro comes out as of recording this video in 2 days, so I wanted to get this out and done quickly. Anyways, I don't know when I'll get back into the series, but I will at some point, and I just want to come out and share my thoughts with you. So anyways, did you play God of War? How'd you play it, or have you just played the recent one? Getting into it, share me your thoughts, and am I wrong? I just wanted to open the discussion, share a different point of view about the Ghost of Sparta. So anyways, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to my discussion review on the original God of War. Goodbye!